In our JavaScript interview series, the first question is what are the primitive and non-primitive data types in JavaScript? To answer this question, you first need to have a clear understanding of what is even data types. So let me give you a very simple explanation of what is a data type using an analogy. So let's suppose you are going to buy a car. Now you need to decide what type of car do you want or do you need. So do you need an SUV, a sedan, a hatchback, a sports car, or maybe an electric vehicle? So this is the type of the car. So this is the data and this is the type of the data. So in JavaScript, to be honest, in programming language, uh, every types of data has some kinds of type, okay, but let's be specific to JavaScript. Now in JavaScript, data types are classified into two parts. One, it can be primitive, and it can be non-primitive. Okay, like this, primitive. Now the answer to this question is very simple. So the answer to this question is how data types are stored in JavaScript. That's it. So if you want to answer this question, you need to understand how data types are stored in JavaScript. So primitive data types are stored in stack and non-primitive data types are stored in heap. So let me now give you a very simple explanation of all of this, and it will become crystal clear what is the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types in JavaScript. Okay, let's now talk about how data types are stored in JavaScript. But first, let's have a very simple overview of all the data types that is classified into primitives and non-primitives. I'm not going to explain you what are these data types, but to understand this, you can watch the complete beginner friendly JavaScript course. There I have explained like literally like everything that a beginner needs to know if they are starting to learn JavaScript. It took me almost 1 year to complete this course. So please, if you want to understand JavaScript, do check out. Okay, so here I have a very simple comment. So primitive data types are string, number, boolean, undefined, null, BigInt, symbol, and non-primitive data types are objects, array, function, date. Now what is the difference between primitives and non-primitive data types? Well, this is the difference between primitives and non-primitive data types. So primitives are immutable, you cannot mutate them, but non-primitive data types are mutable, you can mutate them, means you can update the value. Okay, mutable simply means updating the value. Now how does primitive data types are stored? Well, they are stored by value. And what about non-primitive data type? This is stored by reference. So this is the difference between primitive and non-primitive data type. It's not what are primitive and non-primitive data types. No, the interviewer is not asking you what are primitive and non-primitive data types in JavaScript. No, you need to understand the question. The interviewer wants you to understand or expects you to understand the technicality of primitive and non-primitive data types in JavaScript. So never answer them that hey, primitives are string, number, etc, non-primitives are object array. No, you need to answer what is the exact difference between primitive and non-primitive data types in JavaScript, and the exact difference is how primitive and non-primitive both of them are stored and how their values are read. So let me now explain you all of this by writing a few lines of code. Always remember that primitives are stored by value and non-primitives are stored by reference. Now what does it mean? Well, let's write a few lines of code and then we are going to understand all of this. So first we are going to understand the code of primitive value that is passed by value. Just showed you. Okay, so stored by value. Okay, so first here I'm going to say let a equals to 10. Very simple. Okay, and then let b equals to what? A. Now here what happens is not like this but like this. So b gets a copy of a's value. Okay, and now if I say b, hey b, now your value is 20, and if I console.log, come on, console.log a, what do you think will be the output? Will it be 10 or 20? Take a guess. Pause the video and try to take a guess. So I'm going to continue straight away. So the answer will be 10. In this example, the behavior demonstrates how primitive data types are handled in JavaScript. Since primitive data types are stored by value, modifying the copied variable b does not affect the original variable a. So let me give you a step-by-step breakdown of these 4 lines of code. So on line 27, we have let a equals to 10. We have declared a variable called a and we have assigned it the value of 10. Pretty clear? And then let b equals to a. Now here we have created a new variable b and now we have assigned it a value of a, that is 10. Now here's the catch. Don't get confused. When we say b equals to a, then it's not b equals to a, but it's b equals to a's value, that is 10. Both of them are different. b is equals to a for sure, but b is not equals to a but a's value, because we are talking about primitive data types, right? So here I have written this comment specifically so that it can become crystal clear. So when you say b equals to a, then b gets a copy of a's value. And what is a's value? Well, a's value is 10. We do not point to the variable, but we point to the value stored by the variable. So this is how JavaScript works. It is what it is. You are not pointing to the name of the variable, but the value that it holds. So that's why on line 29, when I say b equals to 20, by the way, at this point, b equals to a, both a and b are independent of each other. Okay, both of them are different variables. Now here, when I say b equals to 20, the value of b is updated to 20. Now this change does not affect a because b holds a copy of the original value. Let me explain you again. If I say b equals to 20, then you may think that, hey, if you say b equals to 20, good, then this b equals to a. Now it means that a will also be 20, right? But see, when I say a, then the output of a is 10, it's not 20. You have a good question. You are right. If b equals to 20 and if b equals to a, then of course a will be 20 as well. So a should have been 20, just like b. If I say b, if I print b as well, you'll see of course b is 20. But why not a is 20 as well? Well, because b is holding the copy of a's value. It's not exactly holding a. A is holding its original value. B is holding the copy of a's value. So this is primitive data type. So this is how primitive data types are stored. When you say console.log a, let me exclude b. When you say console.log a, the value of a is still 10 because primitive data types are immutable and they are passed by value. Okay. So key takeaway with this example is that primitive data types like numbers, strings, booleans are passed by value. When you assign a primitive variable to another, a copy of value is created. Now changes to the copied variable do not affect the original variables. So this is very simple primitive data types. I hope you get the concept of primitive data types cleared in your mind. Now again, I will be showing you the graph. Don't worry, I will be showing you the presentation like how engines actually work. This is not it, but for now let's now understand another example of non-primitive data types. So here I have an object obj1 equals to, let's say, name equals to, I'll say code. Okay, pretty simple. I have a very simple object, and then let obj2 equals to obj1. Interesting. We have a similar example. Okay, now here if I say obj maybe what 2 dot name, and now equals to, if I update this to block, and now if I console.log obj1 dot name, what do you think will be the output? Keep this code in mind and always remember that this is non-primitive data type. This is primitive data type. Just understand this. Okay, this is non-primitive data type. What do you think? Do you think the output will be block? If I save this, yes, the output is block. Now the name got updated. In this case, the value of a did not changed, but here it changed. What is the difference? Well, non-primitive data types are passed by reference. What does it mean? Well, let obj equals to name code, okay, a very simple object, and let obj2 equals to obj1. When you say obj2 equals to obj1, then obj2 references the same object as obj1. Okay, let me copy the comment from another code editor. So right here, like this. So obj2 equals to obj1, so obj2 references the same object, so it is referencing the object. See, b equals to a, so this b is referencing to the value, but no, obj2 equals to obj1, then this obj1 is not referencing to the value, but it is referencing to the object itself. So that's why it is called as passed by reference. See, copies the value stored by reference, and right here, so stored by reference. So primitive data types are stored by value, non-primitive data types are stored by reference. So in this case, b equals to a, b gets the value, but in this case obj2 equals to obj1, obj2 is not pointing to the value, but obj2 is pointing to the object itself. So it is just pointing to the same object as we have mentioned here. So this is how JavaScript is built. This is not something that I'm doing on my own, no. So that's why when you say obj2.name equals to block, then obj2's name property changes to block. And so when you say console.log obj1.name, when you say obj1.name, so this line of code exactly mutates the original name variable, so name property. Okay, if I have another, like, yeah, a is 30, if I save this is a very simple object, right? So this object is a data on its own. If I print this cl, come on, looks like cl snippet messed up, but anyway, I will be fixing it a little bit later. So obj1, this is a very simple object, name code is t. Okay, but where is obj2? If I console.log obj2, we do not have any object called obj2. But see, when I say obj2 equals to obj1, then exact object and its data was copied and it was stored on this variable, that is object2. And so when I say obj2.name to be block, now when you say obj1.name, you see that now the data is updated to block, and that's why when you print obj1 right here and obj2 as well, both of them will be updated with name being block. So this is reference type. Now I know all of this is not making much sense to you, so let's now see an analogy, and then all of this will be crystal clear.